Hello friends, welcome back to Game Brigade. My name is Brian, and today on the show we're going to be taking a look at Evolution Another World, and I want to thank Crody Games for sponsoring this video as we give you my first impressions look at this game so you can make the best backing decisions going forward. So if you like to hear in-depth discussions about specific mechanics of a game and whether I liked or didn't like it, this video will be for you. So stay tuned as we dive into Evolution Another World. Okay, so Evolution, Another World. Let's dive into it. So first off, this is the continuation of the Evolution New World that we covered, I think, a year ago. I did a review, first impressions on that game that went to Kickstarter. This is the continuation of that line where it evolves. Pun intended, I guess you would say, some of the mechanics and the gameplay to give a fresh outlook or take on the series for maybe players that are looking for something a little different. So we're going to go over the overall setup here and the mechanics, and then talk a little bit more about how this game plays. So this game setup is very simple. You will have two different decks that you have access to. One is the creature deck, which has the traits and creatures depending on, if you play them face down or face up. And then here we have the energy deck, which has all of the lands effectively in it that have the energy that you are going to be needing to collect so that you can eventually transmute your creatures into their final form, which is how you eventually will win this game. So you win this game by taking an action once you have fulfilled all 4 of your energy slots to transmute your creature, which will then effectively send them on to where animals go when they're fully filled and happy. And once you have collected 3 of those, you will be the victor. Now there is an alternate mode where you can do 4, but that's if you're looking for a longer game. So how does this game work? Well, it's very similar to other Evolution games. So if you've played those, this is going to feel extremely familiar. Right now I have it for a 2-player setup where you have the Torrid Desert set with 2 energy crystals before a 2-player game. And I've got 2 face-down creatures, which is the starting creatures for a game. And then players will draw a hand of 5 cards. Now these cards are 2-weighted, so you have a top and a bottom section, and these are the traits that you will be assigning to a creature. Now they have an entire sheet here with all the available traits. Now I must always say this is a prototype, so things are always able to change. They can add to these with stretch goals or whatever. I don't know the final plan, but there is a reference card, at least with my prototype, to let me know all the available traits in the deck. So these are the available traits, and then we have our creature. Now, on a player's turn, there are 3 things that you can do. You can play a face-down creature to make another creature if you'd like to do. Or you can play a face-up card, assigning it to one of your active creatures to give it a trait. So in this case, I would be attaching Fireproof, which gives the ability, when attacked, this creature does not lose traits. So that's a defensive trait that I just assigned. After that, we have the ability to activate a creature. Now, when we activate, we can gain 1 energy from the source, collecting it on our creature. We can transmute, which was what I talked about, where we'd send them on to the next stage, but they have to have all 4 crystals to be able to do that. If they're a aggressive creature or a hunting creature, which would require us to have one of these orange traits on there, then we can attack another creature. You follow the rules based on the card. So in this case, I just placed lulling on there. It says the target falls asleep. If it does, this animal, the one I'm attacking with, will gain 1 energy from the supply. And then if a creature successfully attacks another creature, it would fall asleep. We're just going to say that he did it in this situation. So he would then place a sleep token on him to show that he's asleep, and because he attacked this creature, that creature is also asleep. Once all players have had their creatures placed to sleep and there's nothing else that they can do, the round will end. We'll draw a new land card here, which will have additional crystals. Some of these territories and some of these regions that we can travel to have alternative versions of source available to them. So for example, in this one, the Flowery Cave has 2 available to all players, but if you have a carrying animal, in this case, there are 3 additional sources of energy for grabs. So that is a way for you to kind of build your creature into a specific trait based on the territories that are available in the game. And there's a whole bunch of them that are similar in different traits that they want to push for in this deck, in the energy deck. So that's effectively the system of the game. Players are going to be playing cards from their hand. At the end of the round, they're going to draw cards based on the amount of creatures they have in play, as well as the base amount, which is 2. And then by having 2 creatures with crystals on them, I would draw. So you only draw based on the amount of creatures that have crystals on them in this version. And so once players have done that, they're going to go back and forth, eventually forming enough crystals on their creatures where they will then transmute, and this creature will then basically be gone. It's moving on to the next stage of life, and they're going to keep playing until one player has successfully transmuted all 3 of their creatures. So once that is done, we finish the game. And very quick, very easy in terms of setup, but in terms of the play, let's talk now about some of the mechanics of this game that I thought were interesting or whatnot, because I think that's the most important thing, and one of the reasons why obviously you're here watching this show. So the first thing I want to talk about, the thing that's the most important aspect for me when I played Evolution Another World, was the take that mechanics and the player interaction. Evolution as a series has a lot of take that, where you are going to be creating predator creatures with your assigned traits, and you're going to be trying to attack your opponent's creatures. And the name of the game is to create defensive traits, where you're trying to evolve your creatures, into species that are more resilient to the predators that could potentially be able to grab them. And the predators are trying to evolve so they are able to eat those animals. It's a very clean, very thematic design. I've always enjoyed it. But there has been moments when I played Evolution games where the aspect of having a predator kill your animal and then losing it has always been something that's been an unfun mechanic. So the biggest change that I could say that Evolution Another World brings to the table is the fact that you are not negatively impacted too much by another player's predatory creature attacking yours. You still have the ability to put defensive traits that'll make it so your creature's less enticing to attack. But if an enemy does force an attack on you, they might take a crystal away and give it to themselves. They might put you to sleep, which slows you down a turn, but they're not going to kill your creature. That makes this game much more approachable for a wider range of audiences, which I very much really appreciate. The fact that this take that mechanic is still part of the game, because I think it needs to be integral in the system, but it's toned down to a point where more people can enjoy this game and play it at many different types of events. The other aspect of that, and I will talk about this in my final thoughts, is I found that this was much easier for a younger audience range to play with as well. So when you introduce this to a younger audience, they enjoyed the aspect of creating their traits and creating their creatures, and then still having the interaction ability with their fellow players, but they didn't get so negative reactions when they were attacked, because they didn't have that take that feeling, which is usually a gutted, pitted feeling when you feel like you're being picked on or something like that. So that was a very big positive for me with Evolution Another World. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is common with a lot of Evolution games, but I really felt like it was more prominent in Another World, and that is the combos and interactions that you can kind of find and play with as you're putting traits on all your different types of creatures. So, for example, we could have several different creatures in play, and they could have several different traits, and those traits can work well with each other. So, for example, Metamorphic says you may consider this card as a copy of a trait of a friendly animal. So basically, Metamorphic will target another creature once it's activated and copy a trait of that creature. So I could have several different traits that could make this creature be very, very strong. So, for example, I could have when a friendly, let's see here, what would be good? Okay, so let's do something like this. So let's say I am going to gain a crystal from the board up here. There's one available with this metamorphic trait. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And with this metamorphic, I'm going to copy this creature's long-tailed ability. It says when this creature gains one crystal, it may lose a trait. So we'll get rid of that astral trait that I had here and discard it. And it can gain another one from the supply. So very simple. I mean, this was a very basic, and I just pulled it from my hand right here. Just basically, what could I find with creatures available? But there are ways that you can come up with interesting traits to try to think, okay, if I'm going to do this, so like, for example, then this says when a friendly animal gains one from the source, which I just did, this animal gains one from the supply. So in this instance, I activated my creature one time, my middle creature here, copying long-tailed, collected a energy from the source, used long-tailed to discard one of my traits, and then which gave me another source, and then because of my charming little creature over here, he gained an energy from the supply. So in one turn, I was able to gain 3 energy. So I like that there's combinations, and this was something I just drew from my hand. So I think that's part of the strength of this game, finding those fun little combinations. Now, alternatively with that, as you can see on this, there's a limited amount of total traits that are at play. I was longing for more combinations, more things to play with, so that I could think of more interesting ways to interact with my creatures or even my opponent's creatures, thinking of interesting ways that I can hinder them or slow them down in some way that's also not, going to affect them in a seriously harmful manner, which is part of my point 1, but also that it's interesting and they're like, oh man, that was so cool that you thought of that idea. So while I really, really enjoy the aspect of creating the different types of traits that interacted well with each other, I did feel like it was a little shallow just based on my personal prototype copy. Now, I hope that they might have more, but again, I don't know if they will. And I still enjoyed the depth of this, but I was still longing for more. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is, of course, a subjective personal opinion, but that's regarding the art of Evolution in Otherworld. I'm just going to pull some of these cards out so you can kind of see some of them on that top-down camera. These are just some of the arts available in the game. And what I thought was really cool is that the art of Evolution in Otherworld is very vibrant, very colorful, very mythological in a way. And I thought it was really charming. I really, really enjoyed this take on the Evolution series. Most Evolution games have gone with a more naturalistic view where it's going to have, realistic looking animals or creatures that you might be aware of and know. But how often do you see a raccoon, ghost, bat thing? It's cool that they were given the artist the ability to come up with interesting different ideas and things that are flavorful and fun and yet still family friendly. That's one of the things I want to lead into with my final thoughts. Evolution: Another World is a fun, great little starter game that I think I can introduce to a wide range of audiences. But I would definitely place this in my family-friendly category. I see myself, when I play this game, it's going to be with my family, with my younger children or younger family members, because I think that's really where the charm of this game is really brought out to its forefront. Playing this with my player group wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, just because of the lack of abilities and things for us to really challenge ourselves with. But playing it with some of my younger cousins or family members, really saw myself having a good time as they found interesting ways to play the game, were charmed by the charming art displayed here, and I thought it was a very, very good thing. So personally, I want to make sure that that's where I would categorize this game as a very friendly, light game on the Evolution series. If I were to hierarchy the Evolution games, this would be the one that I would place for people who are still kind of tipping their toe into that take-that mechanic of a gameplay. So Evolution in Otherworld is a game that I had a good amount of time with. Again, I would strongly recommend checking the campaign page out for any additional information or changes to the game from the prototype that I have played here. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this title. Please let me know. This is Brian from Game Brigade. I will talk to you very soon.